6, so we'll go ahead and get started this evening. My name is Mia Monroe, and I'm one of the school counselors here at Summit. Just a couple of reminders for tonight, things I want to let you know of from the counseling department before we get started with the rest of our presentation. I think most of you got a scholarship newsletter when you were coming in. We've been emailing those out. If for some reason you don't get email communication from your student school counselor, please let that person know so that they can make sure and double check your email. We've been emailing out things pretty frequently as far as the scholarship newsletter goes, things about nights such as tonight and things like that. So if you're not getting any email communication, please reach out to your school counselor as soon as possible. I do want to mention that on November the 4th, we are going to have a FAFSA night here at Summit from 5 to 7 for anyone that needs assistance with getting out of FAFSA. So please join us for that. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Annie Trout from TSAC.
Great. Thanks for having me here tonight. Like Ms. Monroe said, my name is Annie Trout. I work with TSAC, and we are the state agency that administers all the state financial aid. So your Hope Scholarship, Tennessee Promise, all that good stuff comes from our office. As you came in, there were some handouts. So hopefully you picked up, this is what I like to call our Class of 2020 TSAC brochure. So this outlines all of our state financial aid. So there's some really good information in there, especially if your student's a senior this year, has all the most up-to-date information from those programs that we offer. We'll go over a lot of the programs tonight that affect students, or that most students use as they graduate from high school and go on into college. So we'll go over kind of those main programs. But if you open it all the way up, and you don't have to do it right now, you'll notice what I like to call our roadmap to state financial aid. So it goes and outlines all of those state programs that we offer. So you might look through those, you might see a couple that your student might be eligible for that we don't go over. Please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is on the back. It's also on the handout. Your counselors here are fantastic, so they can answer a lot of questions. But if you do have questions about anything that we don't go over tonight, definitely please let me know. And then I made copies for you of the FAFSA portion of the presentation. So if you want to take notes on that, be able to take it home with you. Hopefully as you start that FAFSA process, that will help you. And then again, like she said, we're having a FAFSA workshop here at Summit High School on November 4th. So if you have questions, we'll definitely be happy to go ahead and answer those. But we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. So when we're thinking about financial aid, when we're thinking about scholarships, there's some main places that you want to look for that money for college. And so that first one, and that one that's really going to hit your student early in their senior year, is going to be that money that comes from that college or university that they're applying to. We recommend that students submit admissions applications, scholarship applications if your school does that, by Halloween of their senior year. Why do we say Halloween? Because that first big round of scholarship deadlines from colleges and universities, especially in Tennessee, usually start around November 1st. And then basically there'll be another big round November 15th and then December 1st and so forth as you go on throughout the school year. So usually if you apply by that November 1 deadline, you've met those scholarship deadlines. And again, remember, each college does that different. They have a different process for applying for their scholarships, so make sure your student's reaching out to their admissions counselor and make sure they know how that scholarship process works at those different colleges and universities that they're looking to attend. The next place that you want to look is those private or local scholarships. And so these could be scholarships like she's sending out on those newsletters, those scholarships for students graduating from Summit High School, or maybe they're scholarships for students graduating from any of the Williamson County high schools. And you want to make sure your student's applying for any of those that they're eligible for. A lot of times, a majority of these local or private scholarships will really start coming in the early spring semester. So when they come back from that holiday break is usually when a lot of these really start coming out. But again, there could be some that come in the fall semester. So it's always a good idea to kind of be watching those newsletters, kind of paying attention to those different opportunities around you to see if there's any scholarships that your student can apply for. Another place to look besides those local scholarships would be any type of organization. Maybe your student or your family is involved with. There could be scholarships for being a part of that organization, so make sure you ask about those, look for those. Places of employment is a good place to look as well. Parents, a lot of times places might have benefits that you can pass on to your student. They may have tuition discounts, reimbursement programs. There could even be a scholarship program for your place of employment that you can pass on to your student, so it doesn't hurt to go talk to your HR department, talk to your manager, see if there could be any type of scholarship program that your student can participate in. Students, if you have a job, a lot of times places that hire high school and college age students may offer scholarships for them, so again, it doesn't hurt for them to go to work and ask about those as well. Local churches, local banks, sometimes they'll offer scholarships. So again, anything that your family might be involved with in the community, it doesn't hurt to ask to see if there's some type of scholarship opportunity associated with that. Again, any of this money that they get from the local community or any of this money they get from private sources, it's just going to stack on top of that money they get from the college or university. So we're just building that financial aid package larger. Those next two sources are what I like to call your government financial aid. So your federal financial aid, things like the Pell Grant, the Federal Student Loan Program would be in this box as well. Your state financial aid, your Hope Scholarship, your state grant, Tennessee Promise. That would be, of course, in your state grant. The good news about these two sources is there's one main application that's really going to make the student eligible for, again, all of that money in that federal box, and then a majority of that money in your state box, and that's that free application for federal student aid. So that's going to be a very important application that your family is going to do for financial aid or for scholarships. Again, if you want to apply for all those private scholarships that your student might be eligible for, it could be like a full-time job for them sitting down and submitting applications for all of those scholarships they're eligible for. There's a lot of those out there. Again, if they're applying to multiple colleges, that scholarship process is going to be different at each school that they're looking at. So again, it's nice to have that one big financial aid application for those two sources. It is important to remember if your student is looking to go outside the state of Tennessee, that state financial aid won't go outside the state of Tennessee with you. So it's definitely more important for them to really be scouring that college campus, looking for any type of scholarship opportunities that might be there, really going through that list of local scholarships and looking for those private scholarships that could be available to them, and then that FAFSA for that federal aid that could be out there. I always get the question, I think we make too much money to qualify for any of that need-based financial aid, so why should we fill out the FAFSA? Well, again, it is the application for a Pell Grant, for the state grant program. In Tennessee, if your student's looking for any Tennessee colleges, the FAFSA is the only application for that Hope Scholarship, so if they want to receive that, they have to complete the FAFSA. Your student wants to participate in the Tennessee Promise program. That's one of those requirements to be a Tennessee Promise student. Again, no financial requirements for Hope or for Tennessee Promise, but they have to complete the FAFSA if they want to take advantage of any of those resources. Maybe they're going outside the state of Tennessee, so they're not going to use any of that Tennessee money. But if they do need a student loan, again, the FAFSA is the beginning of their application for those federal student loans, so they have to do the FAFSA for that reason. And then maybe they're going outside the state of Tennessee, and maybe you've been saving since the day they were born, so you don't need a student loan. But sometimes colleges just say, before we award our institutional scholarship money, we want that FAFSA on file for your student. So if that's your situation, then definitely encourage you to talk to that financial aid office, talk to those admissions counselors to see if they require that FAFSA to be completed for their institutional aid. If your student is a senior this year, they're graduating in May, and they're going to college in the fall, then the FAFSA that they want to complete is that 2021 FAFSA. You always want to do the FAFSA for the year that they'll be in college, so again, that 2020-2021 FAFSA is the one they want to complete. That FAFSA opened on October 1st, so last week was your first opportunity to be able to sit down and complete that free application for federal student aid. The website is up here. It's on your handouts. It's in your brochure. It should be on anything that you're getting from those colleges and universities. It's www.fafsa.gov. And that .gov ending is very important. Remember, we're applying for that government money for that .gov ending. There is a FAFSA.com. There is a FAFSA.org. If you Google FAFSA, a lot of times times that .gov site is not the first to come up. The other sites are lookalike sites. They're going to ask a lot of really personal information about your student and about your family. And then the last question they're going to ask you is for a credit card. They want to charge you $60, $70, sometimes over $100 to complete that FAFSA application. Please remember, you should never be paying a website to submit that FAFSA for you. In Tennessee, we're really lucky you don't have to pay for help for FAFSA. You have my contact information. I do FAFSAs beginning on October 1 and going through the remainder of the school year. We'll have a FAFSA Frenzy event here at your high school on November 4th. So you're more than welcome to come that day. We can help you complete that FAFSA completely for free, or we can just answer some FAFSA questions you may have. If you can't make it that night, you may hear local colleges start to advertise FAFSA Frenzy dates. The FAFSA that you would submit if your student was going to Columbia State would be the exact same FAFSA that you would submit if they were going to the University of Alaska. So your student doesn't have to be going to that particular college or university to take advantage of that free FAFSA help. So definitely encourage you to listen for those FAFSA Frenzy events if that's something you'd like to participate in. When you're completing the FAFSA, you will need what's called an FSA ID, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But an FSA ID is a username and password that you'll create. You'll use that as your electronic signature for the FAFSA. So one parent will need an FSA ID, and then the student will also need an FSA ID. So there'll be 2 FSA IDs per FAFSA. Parents, if you have an older student that's already in college and you've created an FSA ID before, or maybe you've been in college recently and you filled out a FAFSA for yourself and you have an FSA ID, you'll use that same FSA ID for this student that's coming up. So you won't have to create a new one. You'll just use that same FSA ID that you created previously. The FAFSA does ask for financial information. So it's going to ask for 2018 tax information. When we get to that portion of the FAFSA, hopefully, fingers crossed, most of us will be able to use what's called the IRS data retrieval tool. So you'll see a link that will ask if you want to go to the IRS website. We encourage everyone to click that link. We encourage everyone to try and use that IRS data retrieval tool. Basically, it's going to take you to the IRS. You'll enter some basic information about how you filed your 2018 taxes. Did you file married, file joint, household? What was the address that you filed the 2018 taxes at? And then it's basically going to take you to the IRS website and pull that information from your 1040s over and put it on the FAFSA exactly where it wants it to go. Not only is this going to make that FAFSA application process a lot quicker and a lot simpler for you, it could also help down the road. There's a process called verification, and colleges are required by law to verify at least 1/3 of all their FAFSA submissions. Some colleges verify 100% of their FAFSAs that they receive. So if you're selected for verification next year, it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It's a random process, but they're going to ask you to verify that that information on the FAFSA is accurate. If you use the IRS data retrieval tool, especially for that financial information, then it's going to actually say on that FAFSA the college receives, this information was pulled from the IRS. So that can save you some headaches and take you some additional information to that financial aid office on down the road. So I encourage you to use that if possible. There is an app for the FAFSA for federal student aid. It's called My Student Aid. Haven't noticed it so much this year, but last year there was a glitch for people, especially if they were trying to use Safari and MacBooks when completing the FAFSA. So if you sit down and do the FAFSA, that's the only type of computer maybe that you have at your house, and you start getting error messages, definitely encourage you to look at downloading that My Student Aid app. You can do this if you prefer to do your FAFSA on a smartphone or on a tablet. Again, strongly encourage you to look at downloading that My Student Aid app to be able to complete the FAFSA through that process. This just kind of outlines that FSA ID information for you. A lot of people say that sometimes this FSA ID process might be even more complicated than the actual FAFSA. Again, you've got to do it twice, once for the student and once for the parent. You can see all the information required. You have to have 2 separate email accounts. We strongly encourage you not to use the student's school email account. That typically goes away after high school graduation. So again, want to use a personal email account for them. You have to create a username. That username has to be unique to you, so no one else in the world can have it. It'll let you know when it's available. The passwords have to have those security features, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers. They have to be a specific length. They can't have any of those personal identifiers. So again, that's a really secure password. You also have to, or there's an option to link the mobile phone to your FSA ID. We encourage you to say yes to that option if you have the availability to have 2 separate mobile phone numbers. This way, if you forget your FSA ID or if you can't remember that password that you created, they'll begin to text you codes. And you can use those codes to retrieve your FSA ID or to reset that password, and that can make it a little easier for you. So if you have the capability of linking those mobile phone numbers to your FSA ID, I encourage you to do that. And then you have to answer 4 challenge questions. So again, strongly encourage you, make sure you're writing down this information. Take pictures of it if you want to save it in your phone. You can never have the FSA ID in too many different places because again, if you forget or you lose that FSA ID, it can be quite difficult to try and retrieve that information. The website's up there if you want to create it. You can create it in real time when you complete your FAFSA, so you can do that when you sit down in one fell swoop, create that FSA ID, and then start that FAFSA process. Just kind of some of the things you want to have with you when you sit down and complete that FAFSA. You will need Social Security numbers and legal names. FAFSA will do a Social Security Administration check of the student to make sure that they're a real person. You're applying for some of that federal money, so therefore they're going to definitely check to make sure you're a real person before they give you any of that money. So please make sure you have the correct socials. Please make sure you're using legal names. Again, your 2018 tax information. Again, fingers crossed, hopefully most of us will be able to use that IRS data retrieval tool. Every once in a while that system goes down, and there are some tax filing statuses that are unable to use that. So it's very nice to have those taxes handy in case you're unable to do that. You can use that. You can pull that information from your 1040s. Also, if you are married, file a joint. If that's how you filed your taxes, it will ask how much did each parent earn from working. It can't pull this information from your 1040s because if both parents work. That information is included together for both parents on that 1040. So if you have the W-2s, that's the easiest place to be able to pull that information for when it asks how much did each parent earn from working. If you have records of untaxed income, like child support paid or received, you'll want to have that information. And then some of us will be lucky enough to include asset information on the FAFSA. Assets are going to include savings and checking account balances. It will include investments and also business and farm assets if you don't live on your farm and your business has more than 50 employees. As you sit down and complete the FAFSA, you'll notice on the top of the screen, through each page, it will let you know if it's asking for student information. The majority of the screens are going to be student information. And then when you get to parent information, that will switch and it'll say parent on top, especially in that financial information portion. It's going to ask the exact same financial questions of the student as it will the parent. It's going to ask for parent financial information first, and then it will switch over to the student. So definitely check to see, especially if you start thinking, it's already asking me this question, why is it asking me this again? Check the top of the screen to see if you're supposed to be entering parent information or student information on that screen. As you start the FAFSA, it's going to go into the student information, so you can see kind of what it's asking you there. Again, some of the big errors that we see, again, is not using legal names, maybe messing up that Social Security number, so please double check that. The email question, it's going to communicate to the student email address. So all of that important information is going to be sent to the email address that's listed for the student on that FAFSA application. If you take the email address out, they're going to mail things to your house the old-fashioned way. Some parents may prefer that. Sometimes parents like to put their email address, especially for the freshman year. They like to put their email address, so they're receiving the information, the important information about the FAFSA there. Another big issue that we see for FAFSA is that grade level and that degree seeking. You do have to do the FAFSA every year that they're in college. So for next year, they're going to be never attended first year. So it'll be their first year in college. So we want to make sure they're listing that. And again, we're talking about the degree that they're working on next year. So it would be first bachelor's degree, associate's degree, or certificate or diploma. We know that some of them have really high expectations of themselves, and we want them to reach that. But next year, they won't be working on master's degrees. They won't be working on advanced degrees. So make sure that they're listing the appropriate information for next year. After they enter all their student demographic information, they'll then go to the school selection portion of the FAFSA. They'll list information about their high school. Then they'll list their colleges and universities. They can list up to 10 colleges and universities to receive the FAFSA information. We encourage them to list those colleges that they're most likely to apply to or have already submitted applications to. Again, this FAFSA is going to be communicating lots of really personal information to those colleges, so it's best to send that information to those colleges if they think that they're going to submit those applications. After we enter in the school information, we're going to go to dependency questions. The dependency questions are going to be things like, is the student older than 24? Are they married? Do they have children or dependents? Are both parents deceased? Are they homeless? So probably about 95% of all high school seniors cannot answer yes to any of these questions. If you cannot answer yes, then you need to provide parent information on the FAFSA. If you are in that 5%, if you're in that minority that can answer yes to one of those questions, then you're considered independent and you don't have to provide parent information on the FAFSA. If for some reason you can't answer yes to any of those questions, but you can't provide parent information on the FAFSA, you'll need to mark that you have a special circumstance. After you mark this, you can finish the FAFSA with your student information, but you'll have to go to the college or university and talk about that special circumstance with someone in the financial aid office. You want to remember to talk to them in that financial aid office if you have a special circumstance. When we go through that dependency information, if we're considered a dependent student, then we'll start with our parent information. So the parent information, again, is going to be kind of basic demographic information about the parent. Please remember, parents are biological or adopted parents only. That's the only people whose information should go on your FAFSA. In situations of divorce, you want to use the parent that the student lives with more than 50% of the time on that FAFSA. If that parent is remarried, then that step-parent's information will also go on the FAFSA as it's looking for household information. It'll then ask how many people live in your household, and then give you the option to put how many of those students will be in college next year as well. After you get the parent information in, then you'll go to that financial information. Again, you'll start with a 2018 tax information. Again, hopefully at this point, most of us will be able to use that IRS data retrieval tool to pull that information over. However, if you can't, it's important to remember it's going to ask you for your adjusted gross income. Again, you'll find this on your 1040s. Another line is going to ask how much taxes did you pay last year, and you'll also find this on your 1040. It's on the left-hand side of the page, on the second page, I believe. Kind of indented a little bit to your left there, but you'll see a line that says taxes, and it's that information. A lot of parents, if they have to manually put that financial information in, will put the same amount as their adjusted gross income, or they'll list how much they paid in taxes when they filed, if they owed money, or how much they received back if they were refunded money, but it's the actual amount of taxes that you owe for that 2018 tax year. Again, if you use that IRS data retrieval tool, you shouldn't have that problem. If your students file taxes in 2018, And again, important to remember, it's going to ask for that student information as well. After you enter the basic tax information, then it's going to go into that asset information. Again, savings, checking account balances, investment values, and then farm or business values. Again, if you don't live on that farm or your business has more than 50 employees. If we're thinking about investments for FAFSA purposes, a lot of the things that we consider investments might not be considered an asset or an investment for FAFSA. So as you can see, things like the house that you live in, your primary residence, is not considered an investment for FAFSA purposes. However, if you own rental properties or you had vacation homes, then you would include that value in your assets on the FAFSA. Parents' retirement accounts, those also aren't listed on the FAFSA, so 401ks, IRAs, things like that, you wouldn't include that. However, if you just owned stocks and bonds, then you would include that information on the FAFSA application. After we get that financial information in, again for the parent and then the student, we're going to be at that sign and submit page. And so this is the portion where you'll be able to actually enter those FSA IDs if you haven't previously. You'll be able to sign that FAFSA, and then you'll be able to hit submit. After you hit submit, you're going to receive a confirmation page. You will also, your student will receive a confirmation email, so they'll be able to review that at a later date. After about 3 to 5 business days, they're going to get the student aid report. And I like to think of the student aid report as a super FAFSA confirmation page. And so that's going to list all of the answers even that you put on the FAFSA. It's going to let you know if there's any errors, if there's anything it thinks you need to go back in and look at. And it'll also let you know those FAFSA results. So it'll let you know your EFC, your expected family contribution. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But you'll have all of that information, again, about 3 to 5 days after you hit the submit on that FAFSA. At that point, this FAFSA will also begin sending that information to those different colleges and universities that your student has applied for. So then they'll be able to go in, if your student has submitted that admissions application, those colleges will go in and pull those FAFSA results and start building that financial aid package for your student. So some of the things you're applying for when you submit that FAFSA, again, that federal student aid. So things like the Pell Grant, that big federal financial aid program. The Pell Grant, to qualify, your EFC needs to be between 0 and 5328. If your EFC falls within that window, you'll be eligible for some of the Pell Grant. So again, the EFC, the expected family contribution, is those FAFSA results. It's going to take all of that information that you put on the FAFSA, that financial information, that household information, how many people are in your household, how many of those are in college next year. It'll even take into account the age of the parents, how close are they to retirement. It's going to take all that information and run it through an equation. And again, it's going to spit out that number, that EFC, that expected family contribution. So the job of the financial aid office is to take your student's EFC, that expected family contribution, and it's going to compare those FAFSA results to their big cost of attendance numbers. And the difference is going to be your student's financial need. So that financial aid office will then look for scholarships, they'll look for grants, and lastly, they'll look for student loans to meet your student's financial need at that particular college or university. So again, if your EFC, your expected family contribution, falls within that 0 to 5328, then you're eligible for some of the Pell Grant. If your EFC was 0, then you'd be eligible for the full Pell Grant, so $5,920 this year for students with that Pell Grant. The FSEOG grant, Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunities Grant, is for those students that show exceptional financial need. So this would be students with those 0 EFCs. This is a really good example of one of those financial aid programs where there's a limited bucket of money. With your Hope Scholarship, with your Pell Grant, we typically don't run out of money with those. So whenever you fill out your FAFSA is fine. But with things like the state grant and this FSEOG grant, there's a limited bucket of money. So they started awarding students who submitted their FAFSA on October 1st, who met those qualifications out of that bucket, and they'll go until they run out of that money. So again, when you hear people talk about submitting your FAFSA as soon as you possibly can, so you're still eligible for some of this aid that might have those limited buckets of money. The FAFSA will also ask you if you want to be considered for work study. We encourage every student to say yes to this question on their FAFSA. If they say yes on the FAFSA, this just kind of opens them up to that opportunity for work study, where they can have a part-time job on that college campus. If for some reason they're selected for work study, but they already have a part-time job, or maybe they want to focus on their studies for that first year, they can always turn it down at the college level, but if they say no to it on the FAFSA, then they won't even be considered for that opportunity. So we encourage every student to say yes to work study on the FAFSA. Your state financial aid that you're applying for when you complete the FAFSA, your state grant, your TSAA. So if you're EFC, if those FAFSA results fall between 0 and 2,100, then you're eligible for that state grant. The awards would be $1,000 per year at a Tennessee College of Applied Technology. You get $1,300 per year at a community college in Tennessee, $2,000 per year at a four-year public college in Tennessee, and then $4,000 per year at a four-year private college in Tennessee with that state grant if you qualify. Again, this is another one of those programs that has kind of that limited bucket of money. We recommend that students submit their FAFSA application by the state deadline of February 1st if they think that they'll qualify for that need-based aid and be eligible for that state grant. Also, when you complete your FAFSA, you're applying for your HOPE Scholarship. HOPE Scholarship right now, students need a 21 on their ACT or a 3.0 GPA to qualify. Please keep in mind if your student doesn't have a 21 on their ACT, that 3.0 GPA is on the state uniform grading policy. It's not on the Williamson County GPA scale. So you should notice on their report cards, on their transcripts, that there are 2 GPAs there. I believe one's called the HOPE GPA or the state GPA. This is the one that they look at for HOPE Scholarship purposes. So as long as that's above the 3.0, then they're eligible for that HOPE Scholarship. Right now, students receive $1,500 a semester at a community college in Tennessee. So if your student went to Columbia State, Nashville State, they'd get $1,500 a semester with that HOPE Scholarship. If they go to a four-year college in Tennessee, so MTSU, UT Knoxville, Vanderbilt, they'll get $1,750 per semester while they're a freshman and sophomore. Once everybody gets to the four-year school as a junior or senior, if they're still HOPE eligible, they'd get $2,250 a semester with that HOPE Scholarship as a junior or senior. And then the last program, if your student's thinking about going the technical route, they're going to go learn a skill or trade, they can go to any of our Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. There are 27 of those across the state of Tennessee. We'll give them $2,000 per academic year just for being a Tennessee resident with that Wilder Navy Technical Skills Grant. So if they're going to a TCAT, there's no HOPE Scholarship for the TCAT and the Wilder Navy Technical Skills Grant at any of those Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. Again, application for that is the FAFSA. So still it's important to fill out that FAFSA. Last big program, Tennessee Promise. So Tennessee Promise is a last dollar scholarship for students going to any of those community colleges or those Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. You'll have all of these requirements in your brochure, so feel free to look there. So there's no GPA requirement for Tennessee Promise, no ACT requirement for Tennessee Promise. We don't care how much your mama or your daddy makes for Tennessee Promise. We just want to make sure students who are serious about going to college, students who are responsible students, don't have that financial barrier of tuition and mandatory fees, especially when starting out without associate's degree. So if there's no GPA or ACT requirement for Tennessee Promise, how do students show us that they're serious and how do students show us that they're responsible? We've got some deadlines for them. So the first thing that they need to do is they need to submit an application to participate in the Tennessee Promise program. That application is open now. They can apply online at tnpromise.gov. The deadline to apply for Tennessee Promise is November 1st. We encourage every student in the state of Tennessee, every senior, to submit a Tennessee Promise application. Even if you think you're going to go to a four-year school, maybe you think you're going to go to the military, maybe you're sure you're going to go out of state. There's a lot that can happen between November 1st of this year and next fall when you decide that it's time to go off to college or wherever. So we think it's good to have a backup plan. We think it's especially nice to have a free backup plan. So if you don't apply to be in the program, there's no going back in time at a later date when those plans change to try and submit that application again. So we encourage you to submit that Tennessee Promise application for every senior in the state of Tennessee. Yes, ma'am.
Was years long on that?
Oh, yeah, they are. Sorry.
I was like, wait, so you already have to do it?
Yeah, sorry. But they're in your brochure, so you have them in your brochure. So November 1st is the deadline to submit that application for Tennessee Promise. You want to do that by November 1st. The second step to be eligible for Tennessee Promise is you need to do that 2021 FAFSA by the state deadline of February 1st. So we've submitted an application to participate in Tennessee Promise, and then we've submitted our free application for federal student aid, again by the state deadline of February 1st. So you have from October 1 to February 1 to submit that FAFSA application. The third thing that you need to do to be eligible for Tennessee Promise is you need to attend a mandatory meeting. That mandatory meeting is in the spring. It's usually in March to early April. It's usually at your high school after school one day, either at 3 or about 5:30 in the afternoon. Students have to be here. Parents are more than welcome to come, but students have to be in attendance to stay eligible for Tennessee Promise. Counselors usually have those dates by the end of September, so if you haven't heard that date yet, they'll be announcing that soon. You can also go to a website called TennesseeAchieves.org, and you can find information on when that date is. You can go ahead and get that on your calendar if it's not there already. Again, students have to be here, parents are welcome to come. And then the last thing that students have to do to be eligible for Tennessee Promise is they have to do 8 hours of community service for every semester that they want to receive the award. That first round of community service, the first round of volunteer work for that fall semester of their freshman year, they have from November 1st through July 1st to submit those community service hours. Lots of things can count for your Tennessee Promise volunteer hours. If you're volunteering with another club or organization here at the school or in the community, again, as long as it's within that window of November 2nd through July 1, you can use those as your Tennessee Promise community service hours as well. If you have a career field that you're interested in, you want to job shadow someone in that career field, you can use that as your Tennessee Promise community service hours. Again, as long as you do it between that November 2nd and July 1st window. Well, if you're like me and you always think of the best questions on the way home from something like this, you've got my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be back again in November, so if you want to come